All right, Tom, last time we talked about dialectical materialism, that powerful scientific method for seeing the world as interconnected, always changing, and full of struggle, right? Now, are you ready to use that method to understand something even bigger? Something that affects every single one of us, which is human history itself? Why are our societies set up the way they are? Why do we have these massive social problems? And most importantly, how do things really change?
Right, historical materialism. That's what you said we'd get into. So, how does it work, Comrade Daria?
Theory is useless if it doesn't help us understand and change our actual lives. So historical materialism basically says that if you want to understand any society in any period of history, you first have to look at how people produce the things they need to live. Food, shelter, clothing, tools, the basics. This way of producing the economic base is the foundation of everything else.
The economic base? Like how we make stuff?
Exactly. Think about it, how a society where people hunt and gather for survival will have very different rules, family structures, beliefs, and ways of organizing than a society like ours today, which is based on huge factories, global supply chains, and digital technology. The way people make their living fundamentally shapes their whole way of life, their social relations, their government, even their common ideas.
So the economy is the foundation. What about things like laws, the government, or even the ideas people have about what's right and wrong?
That's the next crucial part. Those things, laws, the state, political systems, education, media, even dominant moral ideas and culture. That's what we call the superstructure. It's like the rest of the building that's built on top of and shaped by that economic base. The superstructure generally works to support and maintain the existing economic base. For example, under capitalism, where a small class owns the factories and businesses, that's the base. You get laws that actively protect private property, and a government that often serves the interests of big corporations. That's the superstructure. The ideas promoted in society often make this setup seem normal or natural to rationalize these phenomena.
Okay, so the economic base shapes the rest of society. How does history change then? Why did old systems like feudalism end and capitalism begin?
Great question. Change happens because the productive forces, that's the technology, the tools, people's skills and knowledge, new ways of working, are always developing. Eventually, these new, more advanced productive forces start to clash with the old relations of production. That's who owns what, the existing class structure, the property laws. Think about feudalism. Lords owned the land, and serfs were tied to it. But then, trade expanded, new machinery were invented, early workshops, and then factories began to appear as the new productive forces. These new ways of producing wealth didn't fit neatly into the old feudal rules and obligations, as they were the old relations of production. The old system became a chain holding back progress. This clash creates intense social conflict, class struggle. In the case of feudalism, the rising merchant and manufacturing class, the early bourgeoisie, struggled against the feudal lords. Eventually, this led to revolutions that overthrew the feudal system and established capitalism, a new economic base and superstructure that allowed these new productive forces to flourish.
So historical materialism shows how societies change through these economic shifts and class struggles? Why is that so important for us to care about today?
Because, Tom, it shows us that capitalism isn't the end of history. Just like feudalism before it, capitalism has its own internal contradictions. Think of the constant cycle of economic crises, the vast and growing inequality, the conflict between the interests of the working class and the capitalist class. These contradictions are creating the material conditions for a new, more advanced system, which we Marxists believe would be socialism. Historical materialism helps us understand that today's social problems, poverty, exploitation, war, environmental destruction, aren't just random events, accidents, or bad luck. They are products of the capitalist system itself. And it shows us that the working class, the producers of wealth, is the revolutionary force capable of leading humanity to this next stage. It gives us a scientific understanding of our struggle and our historical task.
Wow. So it's a way to see the big picture of how society evolves.
Historical materialism shows us how these economic systems drive history and shape our lives. But it raises another question. In these systems, especially capitalism, where does the actual economic value come from? How do capitalists make their profits if it's all based on this material production and the workers who do the producing? To really understand the engine of capitalism and exploitation, we need to dig into that. And that, Tom, would mean understanding the labor theory of value. It's a critical piece of the puzzle, and something we will discuss next time.